Welcome, everyone, to our tribute to my dear and beloved friend Leonard Cohen, in which I'm going to be doing a reading of his poetry. Let me start out by telling you something about my friendship and relationship with Leonard, because it was, for me, and I hope for him, a profound and moving experience over a period of 12 or 13 years. Some of you may have noticed that he mentions it in the New Yorker interview that was published just relatively shortly before his death. He mentioned other other writers and people who knew and worked with Leonard mention his relationship to me. And if I'm sounding proud and bragging about it, I am. I'm very proud about it. Leonard was a great man in so many different ways. But also I'm honored by it, touched by it, and blessed by it. My relationship with Leonard goes back actually to, to the 1960s. I didn't, but let me tell you how. Just briefly, during that time, a friend of mine said to me, "There is an old woman, a card lady, that you must meet, and I'll take you to her to give you a reading." And I, I've always been interested in that kind of thing, especially from real uh, oracular people. So we went over there and opened the door and went in, and there was this old lady. Really, she looked like a crone, bent over with a cane, chuckling to herself. I mean, it was really quite wonderful. And she gave me a reading, and never met me before. And among other remarkable things that she told me, she said, "You're going to meet late in your life a much older man who is going to be very, very prominent in your career and in your both professional and personal life, and help you a great deal." At the time, I thought that was kind of, well, okay. But the fact is, I did. And that's what I'll describe to you now. Long after that, a very long time after that, back in the 70s, I was deep into the study of Eastern mysticism with my own guru, Swami Swahananda of the Vedanta Society of Southern California. And he suggested that I might want to also Zen, and recommended, of course, the Roshi Zen Center, who was the same Roshi as had this wonderful monastery in Mount Baldy. So I went and made an appointment, and one of the Zen masters, Zen monks there, greeted me and showed me around and spoke with me. And the Cimarron Zen Center was in a lovely old house that was refurbished to be a center. And there was a kind of backyard with a screen door into a small entryway that a couch was sitting in. And I and the Zen monk were sitting there, and he was getting me ready to meet Roshi, when the screen door flew open and in walked this tall, very man in all black, and he just hurried on past us. And the Zen monk said to me, whispered to me in a voice filled with awe, "Do you know who that is?" And I said, "No." He said, "That's Leonard Cohen." And that was my first meeting with Leonard. Ships that passed in the night. Much, much later than that, actually 12 or 13 years ago to this date, I was, as I do now, teaching uh, on spirituality as well as being a poet. And I lived, as I live now, on the contributions of those students who wanted to contribute something. And it was and still is a difficult life, but very gratifying. And one day, about, again, 12 or 13 years ago, I received a very large donation from out of the blue. Um, and I looked at it and I thought, my God, because at the time the students I had they were not real rich people, and they would send $5 or $10 or whatever, and that was wonderful. I was grateful for it. But this was in the hundreds of dollars, and it was anonymous, except it had a curious pseudonym. It was sent by someone who called himself or herself Baldy Monk. Now, I don't know why it occurred to me, but I thought to myself, Baldy Monk? That's like Mount Baldy and a monk at Mount Baldy. I wonder if this could be, honest to God, I don't know why it came to me, but it did. I said to myself, I wonder if this could be Leonard Cohen. And I wrote back to the contributor and said, thank you. I'm so grateful for your very generous contribution. But may I ask, is this Leonard Cohen by any chance? And I got back the message, guilty as charged. He, from that point on, had this 12 or 13-year, very personal, very profound friendship. Again, that friendship is described by not just me, but by Leonard in his interview with the New Yorker magazine, by by a rabbi who was, I'll tell you about it, involved with Leonard at the same time, and in fact was mostly responsible for telling Leonard about me. In his memoir of Leonard, he talks about me and Leonard's relationship to me and so forth. But it was more than a professional relationship, and it was. I greatly admired his music, and he followed my teachings. One of the writers about Leonard Cohen says to me that I was his last teacher, and in effect I was. But it was more than that, so very personal, and I was very blessed by it. During that early time, it was a time for me of great turmoil. I was, those of you who are familiar with me as a spiritual teacher know, I was at that time in just the center of controversy, being attacked by everyone. Not so much anymore. And Leonard wrote to me and said, "Don't worry, bro. I got your back." I'll never forget that. And he's good to his word to the day he died, and even now after. We corresponded at least once a month, sharing ourselves with each other and talking about each other's work. As I said, for 12 years. Let me tell you now quickly, I don't want to take up too much time with this, but I do want you to understand what my relationship to Leonard was and remains. What I later found out from the rabbi who did this, there was at that time, 13, 14 years ago, a well-known rabbi for whom I now have a great deal of respect, who, without my knowing it, was studying my work. Now you have to understand that for a rabbi to be studying my work was incredible because I was despised by the rabbis. and still am. So it was really incredible. I'm a follower of, without going into a lot of it, Sabbatai Zevi, who was a 17th century mystical heretic and really, really despised by the rabbis of his time and even now particularly. So this rabbi was taking a great chance in studying me, but he was doing it actually in secret. He writes about this in his own memoir of Leonard. And he mentioned to Leonard and suggested to Leonard that he might like them. And indeed, Leonard did. And that was how he contacted me with that anonymous donation. As the rabbi said, the rabbi finally felt he could not be studying Sabbateanism anymore. I mean, really, it's heretical. And for a rabbi to even be looking at it was terrible. So he said he reluctantly stopped studying. But if you read his account of it, he said Leonard had no such qualms and continued. But again, I want to emphasize that it was not just in these teachings that Leonard and I came to know each other. That was our initial encounter. But it became very personal and very loving. And I'll never, ever forget him. And I'll be grateful to everything he did for me out of the goodness and kindness of his heart and the greatness of his soul. One time, rather later in our relationship, Leonard was twice actually. He absolutely loved to listen to the podcasts, to the broadcasts that I put out every morning on on my teachings, neo-sabbatian teachings. And he listened every morning and told me so. And we would talk about the teachings as well as other things. And one time he said to me, well, not just one time, and honored by this, he said, Leonard Cohen, have a voice, but you have a voice. And I knew what he meant. And that was enormously flattering. But it's the reason why I'm giving a reading of his poetry this morning. That's the reason I'm giving a reading of his poetry this morning. I think I think he would be glad of it. I know that I had similar things that I did while he was yet alive that he was very supportive of. So that's how we come to this morning and to my reading of the poetry of Leonard Cohen. Because Leonard, before he was a singer and a balladeer, was a great literary figure. He was considered an important poet and author and novelist, and still is, and collaborated and has collaborated with great people in the past. So, and that's how I initially knew of him. I knew of him as a poet because, in addition to being a spiritual teacher, I am a poet, a working, publishing poet. Some of you know my work. So Leonard and I had a great deal in common. We were, for example, born in exactly the same year, 1935, just a couple of months apart. He was born 2 months before I was. So we celebrated our birthdays at the same time. And I might mention in conclusion, the other thing that we had in common is that Leonard passed away just at the age of 82, just after having turned 82, and just a few days before my 82nd birthday. Rest in peace. Now, let's get to the actual reading. Poetry I'm going to be reading to you comes from a wonderful little book that a friend of mine who's here, Jane M., gave me. I believe was it not for my birthday once? Leonard Cohen, Poems and Songs, published by Everyman's Library. The Everyman's Library is a wonderful, just wonderful. I've loved them forever. And this is their collection of Leonard's and his lyrics. And I'll start out reading from his poetry and end with some of his really gorgeous lyrics. And the way I'll do it is I'll read now for about a half hour and then till quarter past the hour. Then we'll take a 15-minute break, which will bring us to, again, half past the hour. And we'll resume then for another half hour and end on the hour. I hope that makes sense to you. It'll be about an hour and a half reading with 2 breaks. Let me begin. I've carefully selected these poems and lyrics because they mean a great deal to me. The flowers that I left in the ground. The flowers that I left in the ground that I did not gather for you. Today I bring them all back to let them grow forever, not in poems or marble, but where they fell and rotted. And the ships in their great stalls, huge and transitory as heroes, ships I could not captain today, I bring them back to sail forever, not in a model or ballad, but where they were wrecked and scuttled. And the child on whose shoulders I stand, whose longing I purged with public, kingly discipline, today I bring him back to languish forever, not in confession or biography, but where he flourished, growing sly and hairy. It is not malice that draws me away, draws me to renunciation, betrayal. It is weariness. I go for weariness of thee, gold, ivory, flesh, love, God, blood, moon. I have become the expert of the catalog. My body, once so familiar with glory, my body has become a museum. This part remembered because of someone's mouth, this because of a hand, this of wetness, this of heat. Owns anything he has not made. With your beauty, I am as uninvolved as with horses' manes and waterfalls. This is my last catalog. I breathe the breathless, I love you, and let you move forever. Queen Victoria and me. You must remember that Leonard was born and raised and buried in Canada, so he is really of Canadian origin. Queen Victoria, my father, and all his tobacco loved you. I love you too in all your forms. The slim, unlovely virgin anyone could lay, the white figure floating among German beards, the mean governess of the huge pink maps, the solitary mourner of a prince, Queen Victoria. I am cold and rainy. I am dirty as a glass roof in a train station. I feel like an empty cast iron exhibition. I want ornaments on everything because my love, she gone with other boys, Queen Victoria. Do you have a punishment under the white lace? Will you be short with her and make her read little Bibles? Will you spank her with a mechanical corset? I want her pure as power. I want her skin slightly musty with petticoats. Will you walk easy bidets out of her head, Queen Victoria? I'm not much nourished by modern love. Will you come into my life with your sorrow and your black carriages and your perfect memory, Queen Victoria? The 20th century belongs to you and me. Let it be two severe giants, not less lonely for our partnership, who discolor test tubes in the halls of science, who turn up unwelcome at every World's Fair, heavy with proverb and correction, confusing the star-dazed tourists with our incomparable sense of loss. Now this is Bird on a Wire. I have to tell you something. One of the most powerful experiences that I ever had was before Leonard and I met, and before uh, he said to me, "Don't worry, bro, I've got your back." Um, I said I was going through a very difficult time, and I was sitting there working at my desk, listening to radio station KPFK here in the Los Angeles area, and they were playing Bird on a Wire. And to my chagrin and shame, that was the first time I had heard it. And I was weeping. I mean, genuinely. It ripped my heart out because it spoke for me and what I was going through at the time. Bird on a Wire. Like a bird on a wire, like a drunk in a midnight choir, I have tried in my way to be free. Like a worm on a hook, like a knight from some old-fashioned book, I have saved. And if I have been unkind, I hope that you can just let it go by. If I have been untrue, I hope you know it was never to you. Like a baby stillborn, like a beast with its horn, I have torn every one who reached out. But I swear by this song and by all that I have done wrong, I will make it all up to thee. I saw a beggar leaning on his wooden crutch. He said to me, "You must not ask for so much." And a pretty woman leaning in her darkened door, she cried to me, "Hey, why not ask for more?" Like a bird on a wire, like a drunk in a midnight choir, I have tried in my way to be free. Thank you, Leonard. The poems don't love us anymore. The poems don't love us anymore. They don't want to love us. They don't want to be poems. They do not summon us. They say, "We can't help you any longer. There's no more fishing in the big-hearted river. Leave us alone. We are becoming something new." They've gone back into the world to be with the ones who labor with their total bodies, who have no plans for the world. They never were entertainers. I live on a river in Miami, under conditions I cannot describe. I see them sometimes, half rotted, half born, surrounding a mussel like a rolled up sleeve, lying down in their jelly to make love with the tooth of a to make love with the tooth saw. One of Leonard's most powerful poems and lyrics, I believe. Who by fire? Who by fire? Who by water? Who in the sunshine? Who in the night time? Who by high ordeal? Who by common trial? Who in your merry, merry month of May? Who by very slow decay? And who shall I say is calling? Who in her lonely slip? Who by barbiturate? Who in these realms of love? Who by something blunt? By avalanche? Who by powder? Who for his greed? Who for his... And who shall I is calling? Who by brave ascent? Who by accident? Who in solitude? Who in this mirror? Who by his lady's command? Who by his own hand? Who in mortal chains? Who in power? And who, shall I say, is calling? I'll stop now for a 15-minute break. I'm going to have some coffee. All of you do what you want. Well, 20 minutes. We'll resume at quarter past the hour. Thank you all. Read for the next half hour, and we'll end the reading itself in a half hour, at quarter of the hour. And then I'll devote 15 minutes to anything anyone wanted to say at the end or mention. So let's get back to the reading. Take this waltz. Now in Vienna, there are 10 pretty women. There's a shoulder where death comes to cry. There's a lot 100 windows. There's a tree where the lovers and doves go to die. There's a piece that was torn from the moon and it hangs in the gallery of frost. I. Take this waltz. Take this waltz. Take this waltz with the clamp on its jaws. I want you, I want you, I want you on a chair with a dead magazine, in the cave at the tip of the lily, in some hallway where lovers never been, on a bed where the moon has been sweating in a cry filled with footsteps and sand. I. Take this waltz. Take this waltz. Take its broken waist in your hand. This waltz, this waltz, this waltz, this waltz, with its very own breath of brandy and death, dragging its tail in the sea. There's a concert hall in Vienna where your mouth had 1,000 reviews. There's a bar where the boys have stopped talking. They've been sentenced to death by the blues. Ah, but who is it climbs to your picture with a garland of freshly cut ears? I. Take this waltz, take this waltz, take this waltz. It's been dying for years. There's an attic where children are playing, where I've got to lie down with you soon in a dream of Hungarian lanterns in the mist of some sweet afternoon. And I'll see what you've chained to your soul, all your sheep and your lilies of snow. I. Take this waltz with its I'll never forget you, you know. And I'll dance with you in Vienna. I'll be wearing a river's disguise, the highest wild on my shoulder, my mouth on the dew of your thighs, and I'll bury your soul in a scrapbook with the photographs there and the moss, and I'll yield to the flood of your beauty, my chin and my cross, and you'll carry me down on your dancing to the pools where you lift on your wrist. Oh, my love, oh, my love, take this waltz, take this waltz. It's yours now. It's all that there is. Anthem. The birds they sang at the break of day start again. I heard them say, what has passed away or what is yet to be. The wars, they will be fought again, the holy dove be caught again, bought and sold and bought again. The dove is never. Bring the bells that still can ring Forget your perfect offering. This is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. We asked for signs. The signs were sent. The birth betrayed, the marriage spent, the widowhood of every government, signs for all to see. Can't run no more with that lawless crowd while the in high places say their prayers out loud, but they've summoned up a thundercloud. They're going to hear from me. The bells that still can ring. Forget your perfect offering. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. You can add up the parts, but you won't have the sum. You can strike up the march. There is no drum. Every heart to love will come, but like a refugee. Ring the bells that still can ring. Forget your perfect offering. There's a crack in everything, and that's how the light gets in. One of my favorite songs that Leonard recorded is Alexandra Leaving. Let me mention, incidentally, that our friendship, Leonard's friendship and mine, started before his his great tour. He had been out of the picture for about 14 years, out of the public eye. And that is when we met. He was out of the public eye. And it was about a year or two into our friendship that he went on the great tour that was such an enormous success. The reason I mention that is the CD on which Alexandra Leaving was recorded was done as one of his last, I believe his last recordings before his great tour resumed. I love this poem. It makes me very emotional. Suddenly the night has grown colder. Some deity preparing to depart. Alexandra hoisted on his shoulder, they slip between the sentries of your heart. Upheld by the simplicities of pleasure, they gain the light, they formlessly entwine, and radiant beyond your wildish measure, they fall among the voices and the wine. It's not a trick, your senses all deceiving, a fitful dream the morning will exhaust. Say goodbye to Alexandra Leaving, then say goodbye to Alexandra lost. Even though she sleeps upon your satin, even though she wakes you with a kiss, do not say the moment was imagined. Do not stoop to tragedies like this. As someone long prepared for this to happen, go firmly to the window, drink it in. Exquisite music, Alexandra laughing, your first commitments tangible again. You who had the honor of her evening, and by that honor had your word, say goodbye to Alexandra Leaving, Alexandra with her lord. As someone long prepared for the occasion, in full command of every plan you wrecked, do not choose a coward's explanation that hides behind the cause and the effect. You who were bewildered by a meaning, whose code was broken, crucifix uncrossed, say goodbye to Alexandra Leaving, then say goodbye to Alexandra lost. This also was on the CD Leonard sent me when we first met. Boogie Street, I think it's one of his starkest poems. I can almost hear him singing it as I speak the words. A sip of wine, a cigarette, and then it's time to go. I've tidied up the kitchenette, I've tuned the old banjo. I'm wanted at the traffic jam, they're saving me a seat. I'm what I am, and what I am is back on Boogie Street. And oh my love, I still recall the pleasures that we knew, the rivers and the waterfall wherein I bathed with you. Bewildered by your beauty there, I'd feet by such instructions you prepare a man for Boogie Street. So come, my friends, be not afraid, we are so lightly here. It is in love that we are made, in love we disappear. Though all the maps of blood and flesh are posted on the door, there's no one who has told us yet what Boogie Street is for. Oh, crown of light, oh, darkened one, I never thought we'd meet. You kiss my lips, and then it's done. I'm back on Boogie Street. By the river's dark. By the river's dark I wandered on. I lived my life in Babylon, and I did not forget my holy song, and I had no strength in Babylon. By the river's dark, where I could not see who was waiting there, who was hunting me, and he cut my lip and he cut my heart, so I could not drink from the river dark. And he covered me, and I saw within my lawless heart and my wedding ring. I did not know, and I could not see who was waiting there for me, who was hunting me by the river's dark. I panicked on, I belonged at last in Babylon. Then he struck my heart with a deadly force, and he said, "This heart is not yours." And he gave the wind my wedding ring, and he circled me with everything. By the river's dark, in a wounded dawn, I live my life in Babylon. Though I take my song from a withered limb, both song and tree, they sing for him. Be the truth unsaid, and the blessing if I forget my Babylon. I did not know, and I could not see who was waiting there for me, who was hunting me by the river's dark, where it all goes on, by the river's dark in Babylon. Here it is. Here is your crown and your seal and rings, and here is your love for all things. Here is your cart, your cardboard, and piss, and here is your love for all of this. May everyone live, and may everyone die. Hello, my love, my love, goodbye. Here is your wine and your drunken fall, and here is your love, your lull. Here is your sickness, your bed, and your pain, and here is your love for the woman, the man, and here is the night. The night has begun, and here is your death in the heart of your son. And here is the dawn until death do us part, and here is your death in your daughter's heart, and Here you are, and here you are gone, and here is the love that it's all built upon. Here is your cross, your nails and ill, and here is your love that lists where it will. May everyone live, may everyone die. Hello, my love, and my love, goodbye. I think that's a very appropriate place to end our tribute and reading to Leonard right now. Let me unblock those of you who I blocked so that, because some of you I don't know were, all right, now, does anyone have anything they would like to say or comment? Raise your hand if you do, please. David, please go ahead. While we're waiting for David to comment, let me just thank you all for coming and for listening. And I meant this, as I said at the beginning, as a tribute to Leonard. Even more than a reading of his poetry, it's a tribute to him from me, whose gratitude to him knows no bounds. David, go ahead. Thank you. Thank you, David. All right, everyone. Again, God bless you all for attending this. Thank you, Leonard, for everything.